Produced by Victoire. Victoire gives a special thanks to the EWF, Empire Wrestling Federation, and Mr. Jesse Hernandez, as well as SoCal Wrestling TV. Find the app on Roku.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to Masterlocked, the podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Emir, the Master, along with the Masterpiece, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Masters.
Happy New Year. How you doing?
Sure, everyone. Hopefully you had a great Happy New Year. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin today's show, I want to give you a couple of announcements just to let you know. Super stickers are now available. So if you want to buy Chris and I a protein shake, if you want to give us a New Year's gift,
Please.
or buy us a cup of coffee, make sure
I need a protein shake.
We always need protein shakes here, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure if you've got the Super Sticker app, make sure that you use it in the description of this video. Also, ladies and gentlemen, remember that the entire team, that is Chris Masters, Paul Roma, Mario Mancini, Rico Constantino, and myself, we are available for public speaking engagements. So if you're interested, again, use the email address in the description of the video. Likewise, if you're interested in booking the Masterpiece, Chris Masters, get in contact with us. I'll also put the email address that you can contact Chris directly at in the description of this video. And also, if you're interested in another master and Delirium, that's myself, Slade and McCallion, use the email address in the description of the video, and we will begin negotiations with all of you. Now, we take a deep breath, Chris, and we start with the show. So, first up, Chris, WWE, Netflix. It's happening, man. We're 5 days or 4 days away at the time of the recording of this video to Raw debuting on Netflix. But, Chris, I noticed that they've got some libraries already on Netflix.
Yeah, and just real quick to address. So this week for the audio, I'm just gonna put this out there. We're trying my new iPhone 16 because apparently it has a great microphone. But if it doesn't sound good, like I didn't like last week's, we will get a regular microphone. So just an experiment here. Yeah. But anyways, WWE Netflix, and that's actually gonna be out here live at the Intuit Dome, I think that's what they're calling it.
Really? Is that the first event? The first Raw will be filmed from LA?
Yeah, it's going to be at the new arena. It's the new Clipper Arena, which is supposed to be like a state of the art. And actually, funny habit, I actually just text my good buddy Carlito to put in a request for a couple tickets for a buddy for Monday. So we'll hope he can come through. But I know that this is a huge show. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, I heard online them saying WrestleMania adjacent, and it definitely gives off a vibe, like a big show like vibe like that, the CM Punk, Seth Rollins thing. And I just think, this Netflix thing is crazy. I mean, there's a couple of things going on here, and I talked to you about this. Yeah. There's a lot of people mourning the death of the WWE network, where if you had Peacock, you no longer have the library, which I get because I had Peacock because to me, I love The Office. I'm an Office mark. I'm an Office mark, number one.
Did you see the original, Chris, the UK version?
Yeah, I did, but I haven't seen it through the whole season because they took it off before I could. But so I'm a huge Office mark. So to me, having the whole wrestling library and having The Office was kind of like a no-brainer because I still love to watch old wrestling, like anything from kind of 1998 and prior, or that kind of era. Yeah. So I'll go back and revisit all or actually, no, I'll watch stuff up to like 2002, up till when I got there. Yeah. As soon as I got there, I'm disinterested. But,
that's the way it happens.
But, so, it sucks that part. Like, so I have to think about that. I guess, am I going to keep my Peacock just for The Office? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe. Oof.
How much is that? How much is it, the investment?
I think it's not much. It's about $10, I think.
Okay.
But that stuff adds up though. There's so many services now. So, I try to limit myself a little bit. Yeah. And the sucky part is Netflix used to have The Office, but now they don't in America because it's on Peacock. So now, but every Netflix outside of the US does have The Office. So every time I go international for a booking, I try to download as many as I can just to have. But
Yeah,
anyways, this is about the wrestling aspect.
yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's gonna be from a business standpoint,
Mhm.
it's gonna be amazing for them, I gather, because Netflix is everywhere. So
Yeah.
like I just don't think there had to be some limitations in terms of I know in England it was on what was the network it was on
It
out
was
there?
Sky Sports.
Forever it's been on there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, forever.
So, does there all these other countries that have Netflix have a Sky Sports that was dealing with WWE? I don't think so. A lot of
I'm
them did,
yeah.
but I think there's going to be a lot more reach with Netflix.
Mhm.
So I kind of think there's going to be some incredible numbers coming out of this.
Oh yeah, it's credible. I mean, the investment was $5 billion for a 10-year deal with WWE on Netflix. So they poured a ton of money into this deal. When you reference their other channels, I think in Germany, I think ZDF may have had a deal with WWE to broadcast them there. I know in France, probably TF1, which was another channel,
Yeah,
TF.
well, but a bunch of countries did, but the point is all right. Now let's think about everywhere that Netflix is.
Yeah,
There's probably no comparison, right? Like
yeah,
now, basically everybody in the world can watch Monday Night Raw. Like people in Korea can pull up Monday Night Raw. I think if they like,
yeah.
like
But
this
I,
might this might be unbelievable. I mean,
yeah.
unless I might just be blowing it out of proportion in my head, but I've thought about this for a while, and I've just thought about the reach Netflix has, and I just think it's going to be.
It's going to be huge because not only that is you're putting more eyes on the pro wrestling product in general. So now you're going to create a huge fan base and it's going to have a trickle down effect. It's not just going to affect WWE, it's going to affect AEW, TNA, NWA because people are going to be searching that now. They're going to want to know what wrestling is because believe it or not, fans, there are some people out there that still have yet to watch a full event. They do exist, people like that on Earth, everybody. But yeah, the Netflix. I mean, it's a historic moment. WWE's been on TV, USA Network for, gosh, how many decades now? It's been on
Well,
network.
well, think about this too. I just thought about this. Think about the numbers they do on YouTube.
Hmm.
And YouTube has to be kind of comparable to Netflix. So like if they were doing those numbers on YouTube and now Netflix has about the reach of YouTube because it's they're basically common for those to be readily available everywhere except maybe North Korea, I guess.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah, or
but
somewhere like
so that's another reason to think that like wow, they might do unbelievable. They might do compare like because I think they do more numbers on their YouTube by far than they even do. Yeah, they do
that.
than their ratings, their
Oh
actual
yeah,
ratings, because people just don't. My point is the streaming thing. I've been into the stream like I moved to Canada in like 2017. I think we talked about this. And
yeah,
like, so for me, I didn't want to get Canadian cable. So I was like kind of on board to the streaming thing right away. I was just using YouTube and Netflix and I just stopped using television. And I've stopped using television since. So
yeah.
like, it doesn't seem is in terms of that, it doesn't seem necessary for it to necessarily be on TV at this point. You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
true.
people will have to seek it out, but I don't know. Everybody has Netflix and they open up Netflix just to kind of see what the hell they want to watch anyway. And,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
think I think the reach will be slightly different. And viewers also write us, give us your feedback. What do you think? Viewership, will it be more or less or the same? But with Netflix, I think the difference between that and YouTube is when you open Netflix, I know for myself when we opened it last night, WWE is the big thing. That's like the first thing that pops up on the screen, Monday Night Raw coming. So with them, unlike YouTube, say for example, you're searching cooking or gardening on YouTube. Wrestling is not just going to randomly pop up on your feed, but it
true,
is on Netflix. So I
true,
think you're going to have a
true.
resurgence of, and I think which is good why WWE have changed the way they tell their storylines again. I noticed the long form storytelling is coming back, which I'm sure you and I, Chris, are big fans of. That's what we grew up watching. The larger than life characters seem to be coming back. So hopefully they'll hit their stride just right and they'll capture that new audience. I mean, like you said, if they do capture this audience globally now, it'll be the biggest resurgence in wrestling I think we've ever seen. I think it'll be bigger than the past. And like I said, I think it's going to be profitable for everybody involved in the pro wrestling business. Fans are going to have more, but actually, you mentioned content though, Chris. So I'm curious. So where is the rest of the network going then? Have you done any research to see where all the old events are going?
No, I haven't done research, but I was aware because of what I told you. I knew that, oh, okay, well, I have Peacock now, and now the only incentive is now that I have The Office because
Mhm.
I'm losing the network. So I've had to kind of wrestle with that, and I haven't heard anything. I mean, who did I hear talk about it? I'm not sure even who I heard talk about, but I just heard somebody insinuating that it was just going to die, and that's it for now. There's just been no update or no. I don't know if it was, it was maybe one of the other pods or something, but
Yeah.
I just haven't seen anything talking about it. So I'm kind of surprised that there's a lot, with all the fans,
Mhm.
WWE fans, that there hasn't, but there has to be some kind of uproar. I mean, for
Yeah.
them to not have all the library now it's like, anybody who sold off all their DVDs and VHS for them, imagine if they
Yeah.
never put that library back up.
That's
Imagine the
terrible.
value of all the people with all those tapes and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, unbelievable. I had the whole library when I was a kid. But
Oh, I
yeah,
used to love VHS collecting, man. Like, oh,
yeah.
that was, you just feel it'd be so awesome when you go to a random video store and just see like this Rampage tour 1992 that you
Oh yeah.
never even knew that, and then this crazy, like, oh my God, Macho Man wrestling Shawn Michaels. What?
Yeah. Just a quick tangent, so Chris, and actually a challenge to some of our viewers out there. I want to know.
A Master
In
Lock challenge, that
Master
is.
Lock Challenge, here we go. So in 1997, we finally got the WCW pay-per-view events available on VHS in the UK. They were only available on mail order, and the pamphlet was in the Power Slam magazine. I want to know who was behind that? Who produced those videos? I've never been able to get to the bottom of it. They were never available in stores. You had to order them all. And for some reason, Halloween Havoc was never released in the UK, not 97, not 98, and not 99. So if anybody can answer me that question, leave a comment in the description of the video.
Man,
Both be curious about it.
I did not see that coming today.
Yep.
I never knew that Halloween Havoc was banned from the UK. Wow.
Yeah,
What's going on?
that's the only thing I could think of, Chris, is because back in the
Wow.
90s, there was a lot of censorship in the UK, and they didn't want, like, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were called the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in the UK because they didn't want the word ninja in their title.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
You guys were that uptight?
Yep. Well, not me, but yes, my countrymen.
Damn.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
We've never been that conservative here, at least since
Yep.
I've been born. We just,
Yeah.
like that's wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So
Hey,
I
maybe
guess
you have the right idea though. You guys don't have guns either, you know what I mean, right? So like,
no,
and
no.
look at all the violence. We get way more violence out here, don't we?
There is a lot of violence, but there is equally, I will say, playing, both sides, there is a lot of street violence in the UK, a lot of
A lot of
bombs,
stabbing.
yeah, stabbing, things like that. Horrific, and very sad, very demonic stuff. But yeah, no, unfortunately, it's plagued the whole planet, Chris. But going back to your point with the library, I hope to God that they make that available somewhere because that would be a travesty to not see WrestleMania 6, WrestleMania 7. I mean, come on, there's got to be something. Fans, you need to speak up. We need the library.
I think they will, but the question is when.
Yeah.
Like, and like how long will it be? But like, I think I'm just kind of surprised that the fans haven't kind of been like kind of just kind of, I don't want to say demand answers, but like kind of press them on this a little bit. Like, hey, is there in the future at least, is this how important is this to you, or what are your thoughts on this issue of having,
Yeah.
what are we going to do with the library? Because with the, I know wrestling fans, being as that I was a wrestling fan, you're very nostalgic to watch old stuff,
Mhm.
like you're saying. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, you want to put in WrestleMania 6 or SummerSlam 92
Yeah.
or WrestleMania 12 or whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. What was your favorite one, Chris? Give a little bit of trivia to the audience. What was your favorite pay-per-view of all time?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. You know,
Top five. Top five.
Well, the most sentimental one I have is WrestleMania 12. I'm not saying that that's the best WrestleMania though, if you're going top to bottom.
Yeah.
But like, Sean and Brett in the Iron Man match was the match that got me like, because I had a 2 year kind of lapse fan,
Hmm.
not watching. And I started watching again and I saw it through to that match. And I just kind of always kind of remembered that match as being like there was no looking back after that. I was so like inspired by the story and just the match, everything that happened leading into that. And, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but like at the best WrestleMania top to bottom, realistically would probably be the one where Rock and Austin wrestled and Shawn and Jericho wrestled. And what was that? Was that
That
18 or
was like, no, that would have, oh, yes, that was 19. That was Seiko
19?
Field up in Seattle.
Because I just think you had the best collection of I like just as far as roster wise. I mean, I could also go to the golden era and point to probably one of those. You know what I mean, very
Yeah.
easily. But
Yeah.
but I think if you were to just that one just had like you had just so many. I mean, think about the matches you had. What was the main event? Brock and Kurt,
Yep. It
right? Like,
was Hogan
isn't that
against McMahon. Yep.
yeah? Like, think about it. It was just
Yeah.
like, man, like wow.
You're right. I totally forgot about that because I always think about the golden
It
era.
was Austin's last match.
Yep. That's right. And Shawn Michaels against Jericho. Yeah.
Shawn Michaels comeback to WrestleMania, and that was like the match where he really became Shawn Michaels again because it was kind of his first wrestling match. Because
Yeah.
all the matches before that, Street Fight, Chamber, three stage, whatever they did in
Yeah.
December, you
Armageddon
know,
or
yeah, they
something.
were all
Yeah.
they were all fights and kind of
Yeah.
gimmick matches. But then the one with Jericho is now an actual
Yeah.
WrestleMania wrestling match, no gimmicks, no nothing. And I think he even said that's what kind of gave him a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and that's the one where he first really, to me, looked like the Heartbreak Kid again. Because remember at Survivor Series the year prior, he was wearing those brown tights and the brown boots, and he was kind of
Yeah,
experimenting with
yeah, yeah.
experiment.
He had to learn how to become the Heartbreak Kid again. It took a few,
Took him
it
a
took a
while.
minute. It took a
Took him
minute. Yeah, yeah.
like 6 months or so. But Chris, I wanna segue off now, talking about the matches like that. We were going to have a segment this week, ladies and gentlemen, putting together a match, constructing a match, because oftentimes you fans watch it and you don't really, maybe some of you may not understand the intricacies involved. So who better than the masterpiece and the master to go through it for you? So, Chris, let's start going through the structure of a match. So just tell the audience, like, so what happens? You show up to a building, an arena, and then what happens to get that beautiful performance to construct it and put it all together?
That masterpiece, if you
That
will.
masterpiece.
Well, I'll tell you about my process as of late, which has been just a little bit different, but I think it's been kind of clutch for me. Is being on the independent wrestling scene. As you know, I'll be going to a different indie on a lot of weeks and wrestling a guy that I may have never wrestled before, haven't been on tour with, or anything. I'm just not familiar with a lot of times. So for me, I'll try to pull up one of their matches or a couple of their most recent matches on YouTube so I can just kind of see what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can like to me, and I always do it with the volume down for whatever
Yeah.
reason. It's just I don't know, it's easier to tolerate without all the screaming and yelling. So that's how I have to watch it from a studying perspective. But like for me, that way there's no surprises because it's very, most guys will just show up there and ask a guy, what do you do? And then they'll start trying to piece the match together.
Mm.
But like for me, it just, if I do that, at least there's no surprises. But in terms of like getting to a show, like for me, so I'll do that. But a lot of times, like when I get to a building, even if let's say I haven't watched them, like I'll see the guy I'm working, and if this is the first I've met him, I'll kind of like, for lack of better term, I'll size him up, but
Okay.
like not to be like, not in a kind of a vanity type way or comparing myself. It's more just to see like, okay, what is his size, but also, beyond that, what's his style? What
Mm.
type of wrestler is he? Is he a technical wrestler? Is he a high flyer? Is he big, small? How does he look next to me? In terms of, because that's how you kind of figure out, well, what's our story going to be? Because like,
Mm.
there's no reason to jump right to the moves. It's more it's just about like, okay, well, what is it? what is it that, if they talk about storytelling, I think it
Mhm.
kind of starts there. It's like, okay, what's the presentation?
Mhm.
And like, what are my advantages? What are your advantages? What are my disadvantages? Like, if it's a smaller, high flying guy who has a lot of babyface offense, I know that, like, okay, I'm going to work the bigger, stronger style. My advantage will be strength in this situation and in a lot of situations, quite frankly, especially on the indies,
Mhm.
unless you get a guy who's my size or bigger, then that changes the whole dynamic because
Mhm.
now the psychology then becomes, if the guy's my size, it becomes, oh, we're equal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's no advantage strength wise. So then it's like, okay, well, who's the baby and who's the heel? And then
Yeah.
you can kind of sort it out from there. But you know, and so like, and then so I'll kind of figure that part out, and then eventually, once we start talking, I'll kind of ask them. So, like, we've already clarified what type of wrestler he is, what he does, and all of that. Or, sometimes you got a guy who's very strong on gimmick or
Mhm.
Gaga and stuff, has like, very specific things he has to get in.
Yeah.
So sometimes you gotta like, figure that stuff out.
Mhm.
But so then it'll be like, okay, so it's like I'm gonna be the bigger, stronger heel. You're the smaller, quicker baby face.
Mhm.
What is some stuff you like to do?
Mhm.
And we'll kind of start going through his Rolodex and stuff. And a lot of times that's if I haven't maybe already watched him, because if I've watched him prior to this, I already see like, oh, cool. He's got this, which I already have taken before and I can do well, or he's got this, you know what I mean? I've
Yeah.
already kind of know I can kind of plug my stuff into his. Like he might have something that works perfect out of me going for a master lock. He
Okay.
might have like some kind of counter or kind of
Yeah.
some kind of specialty move. So like, if I've done my homework, I already kind of know that going in. And the funny part is with a lot of this is with these indie guys, especially, they'll be they'll be flattered
Mhm.
when they hear that I've watched their match
Yeah.
prior to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it's always funny to see like, oh, you watched my match, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I took the time, I watched it,
Yeah.
but and then I think I don't know if a lot of fans know, but I mean, there's a basic psychology to a match. The basic psychology is, you shine the baby face. The heel get which the baby face gets a lot of offense, looks good, but then the heel gets a cutoff, which is a heat spot. Usually something if they can dastardly or mean or cheating or and then there's a heat where the baby face is in peril and getting his ass whooped or his
Mhm.
we can say ass on YouTube, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, putting and so the baby face is fighting from underneath, trying to show hope and building to finally make a comeback. And then you have some false finishes, and then you have a finish. I mean, really, it's the same structure of a lot of movies. If you look at it, you know what I mean.
Yes.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
movies that work in the same kind of premise,
Yeah.
and but it's not to say that. Excuse me. It's not to say that every match works that formulaic. I think is the term
Formulaic. Yeah.
formulaic, but that's the basic formula, and like so that's kind of what you would want to teach somebody who's beginning, and then somebody who kind of masters that
Mhm.
can then you can always tinker with it from then. Like you might not need a shine because there's some kind of storyline that's already
Mhm.
leading into this. So there's always room to tinker with that, flip it around, change it, or just kind of flip things around a bit. But
I
so
like, but I
go
like
ahead.
what you said there about bringing a story into it because obviously I've been around and I've heard things in the locker room areas prior to matches, and I think one of the things that sometimes some of the younger guys or the less experienced forget is that psychology of a story. They just want to go straight into I'm going to do this move and this, and it doesn't mean anything by the time they get out there. So that story, like Chris said, it's vitally important. That's a huge component to making again, why do I want to sit there and watch you for 6 to 12 minutes? Why? I'm not watching you for your flips and backflips. Sorry, Chris, I had to get that in there.
No, you're right though. But I mean, and that just comes down to again, like what are your characters? Who's the baby face? Who's the heel? And again, what like sizing up? What's the presentation? Like, what does it look like? What are the people going to be seeing when we're standing face to face or next to each other or whatever? And because you don't want to give them something that's completely adverse to that. You know, you don't
Yeah.
want to have some guy who's, you know, a weight of bad wrestling psychology would be to have a guy who's like 180 pounds, like throwing a guy who's 260 pounds all over the place. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that would be a case of a guy where a guy would probably just wanting to get his ish in, as they
Mhm.
say, and not prioritizing the psychology of like, well, this doesn't look right. You know, it doesn't
Mhm.
mean you can't bump this bigger guy, but to do boop, 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 that's too much.
Yeah, yeah. So what about calling a match on the fly? Because we hear this a lot. I mean, I've talked to a lot of the legends about this. This seems to be, even Paul, he often says, "No, I just call it when I'm in the ring. I know who's gonna, I know the go home spot. I know the end. I know who's gonna win and lose. That's all I need to know." So what about that for you now? Now, when you got into the business, again, totally different time. Was it more like that, or were you still calling
Oh
every
yeah.
single?
Oh,
Okay.
we and, no, because when I came up in OVW, and it was old school there. Like you had to possess, like I was trained in a way in which to be a good worker, you have to have that ability.
Hmm.
You can't not have that ability. You can't just have the ability to talk over a match for 2 hours and execute it.
Hmm.
You can do that, and you would want to do that for big matches. You know what I mean? If a pay-per-view or something that's important, you don't really want to just go in there and wing it.
Right.
But to me, you have to have that ability because, you might need to fill in time. You might need to change stuff on the fly. You might have to wing a specific portion of the match for whatever reason. Maybe somebody hurt something and they're, kind of working their way through it.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
my cat
Or
loves to come in and out.
yeah, I saw it.
He likes to visit. But like, so you had to have that ability, and like Rip Rogers and OVW really stress that. And like um quite honestly, it's the best possible thing you can have because like, you know, when you can call it on the fly, there's like when you've worked this many matches and you worked as long as I can, there's times when you want to come in and you just don't want to have a bunch of things to remember. You want to just go out there and dance.
Yeah.
To go back to Shawn Michaels again, when I was working with Shawn in that program and we were working live events all over the world, one thing I know that he loved eventually was we didn't have like he gave me the responsibility of calling the whole match and we would call it, you know what I mean? Like
Okay.
we call it on the fly, but I mean we'd worked each other a lot, so it wasn't like anything was out of the norms, you
Okay.
know what I mean? But he basically, and like to him it was such a relief to just not have to like think about it and just go out there and work.
Yeah.
And so that's another part of it. And but like another, and in terms of even the presentation, when you're working on the fly, one great asset that you have is you're not thinking about what's ahead, what's the
Hmm.
next move.
Hmm.
You're present and you're in the moment, and that makes kind of a huge difference because
Yeah.
when you're present, you're not missing any of the little details, which really are very vitally important. The little reactions or taking your time when you need to, like so. It really just ties in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I thought of, and I think of a lot when we're doing these shows, is the crowd reaction. So if you've mapped out something in your head and you're a stickler and you're sticking to it, but that crowd is not reacting at all, they could care less. You're going to be able to be on the fly. You can change and mold that to suit, to get them to stand up again, to get them to believe again. So I think it would make a huge it would be vitally important to be able to do that. Because again, if you're losing a crowd and you're going to be a stickler and say, "No, I'm just sticking to a script," then you're negating everything that audience is telling you. In your head, you may think it's great; they think it's terrible.
Yeah, like for example, here's a good example I've just thought of.
Hmm.
Because I can end up going to an indie show and working a baby face or a heel, either one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let's just say like I come out in a situation where we're in a match and I'm supposed to be the baby face and I'm wrestling some other guy.
Okay.
And we go out there and they're just booing the hell out of me for whatever reason, which they might. Like maybe they just don't take to me or they think I'm like cocky or whatever. They're just booing me or maybe they just like this guy better. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's a heel crowd, for instance.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't, like in that situation, I might like, try to stick to the script for a couple. We'll run a couple of the plays we had, but if it's really feeling like they just want me to be heel, like I would come out of that second play and I would kind of go face up with him, and I would just like, we'd be kind of talking smack, and I would like cheap shot him, and I would just be like, you know what, screw it, I will turn myself heel and like start kind of working and playing to that, to the crowd, and just kind of switching it on its head, because like the other way, you just be swimming upstream and you might not ever get them to cheer you. You know what I mean? And this is again is a very, you know, like it's a not a very common situation where you just have everybody just booing me unless I
Yeah.
entice them to do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are situations like that sometimes. You know what I mean? Where somebody and like again, it's not Monday Night Raw, so you don't have to play to any storylines. So, being at that, it's just this crowd. It's like, all right, you want me to be heel? I'm gonna be a freaking heel, and
Yeah.
we'll just flip it on its head. Now I'll just get a heat on him, and
Yeah.
I would end up calling a comeback, and it would be much better than whatever if we would have just went through what we had planned and tried to like get them for me to win them over. Which maybe I would have won some over, but
Yeah.
like. I just think, flipping it on its head and going that way would end up being, it'd be like a shock to us in the match, but it would end up like we would come back from it and we'd kind of be like, wow, well, can you
Yeah.
believe what we just,
Yeah.
I could tell you, we'd be like, wow, that was awesome the way, and again, we'd be like, and we did that on the fly, and like, that's an example of
Yeah.
where, the ability to do that would come in
Yeah.
very handy.
Yeah. Now, you, as someone with the tenure that you've had in the business now, can you tell if someone's following a scripted match or if they're on the fly? Can you tell just by watching a match now?
Well, you can just tell because sometimes the high spots are so int integral. Is that the
Mhm.
right term? You know what I mean? There's so
Yeah,
much
an
detail. There's
integral
just
part of it. Yeah.
yeah, there's just so much going on that like there's no way you couldn't. It's like so choreographed. There's no way you couldn't have
Hmm.
walked through that. Which I'm not against that kind of stuff, but like I just for me personally, I think you have to have the right balance of some of that, but make sure you keep it grounded and still remember that it's not Circus Soleil as much as a fight. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not if you're it's not a 50-50 thing. It should still be more leaning on the side of looking like a combat or a realistic fight, and sprinkle that stuff in, but like really do an effort to make it look within the within the backdrop of a combat or a match or a competitive match, and not look like I never like the stuff where it looked like a guy has to play along
Hmm.
so much, or it takes way too much setup. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
like it when it looks organic and it happens. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I know
Yeah.
other people have this criticism. So like to me that's one of the things that would stick out.
Mhm.
Is I don't know if there's anything specific outside of you could look at a guy's face and realize that he's just thinking and
Mhm.
not like we're not maybe working the crowd or not reacting the way he should in that moment
Yeah.
would also be a giveaway. You know what I mean? And that's the type of details I'm talking about that you lose when you plan everything. I'm not saying I'm not even a proponent though of
Mhm.
necessarily going to a match calling the whole thing on the fly. Like you should have the ability to do that. But I think the most ideal situation is where you allow a balance of freelancing and some calling on the fly with you do plan the stuff that you plan your your important false finishes, you plan your finish obviously,
Yeah.
and you might plan maybe even where you cut the baby face off, but if you could fill in the rest, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
and that's how most of the veterans when I came in the WWE actually worked. Like ideally they just kind of wanted to know, let's not plan everything in the beginning. Let's just have maybe a cutoff and like the comeback to the finish. And then,
Yeah.
you fill in the rest. You improvise, you freelance, you call on the fly.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to do it. I think promos are the same thing. With me personally, with a promo, it's the same thing. I've got a few bullet points in mind, and that's it. There's nothing more than that because if I go over it and over and over and over it in my head, then I'm going to be constantly thinking, what's coming next? What's coming next? And I can't react in the moment. It's a trapping, like you said, Chris. But now you have been in WWE, Impact, and NWA. Now, in Impact and NWA, was it more, did they get into the scripted now, or will you still be able to call on the fly in the more recent years?
With the matches,
Yeah.
Well, no, whenever you have a TV situation, you plan.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like you plan, like you don't, that doesn't mean you have to plan your whole heat, but like, because again, you're working with a sharp time.
Hmm.
A lot of times you have 8, 10 minutes, and then a lot of times that will be cut. So, you have to plan when it's like a TV or pay-per-view environment. Like you could call it on the fly, but that'd be very risky. I
Yeah.
mean, and then again, you can't be as detailed. I mean, that's the one downside. If you're calling on the fly, obviously you can't be as detailed or you can't be as creative on the fly.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But trust me, that sounds like it sucks, but the advantages, there are great advantages too, because
Hmm.
a lot of stuff just looks more natural and you're reacting realistically in the moment. And again, you're not thinking.
Right.
So, sorry, am I all over the place? What
No,
was
no, you're
the
not. No,
question?
you're not. It's a big question to answer, and I'm sure everybody's keeping
What
up.
was the question again, or the
So,
original?
so it was just in NWA in Impact Wrestling. Have
Oh
they
yeah,
moved?
oh the
Yeah.
TV, yeah, no. So for TV, you plan,
Okay.
but again, I guess there's not as many live events because you never approach the live events.
Hmm.
You approach a live event or a house show, you definitely wouldn't be as meticulous. Like that's where you'd have a lot more time to kind of, you know, work on your work, so to speak, and
Yeah.
get your reps in, and you can cost because you don't have to work with a hard 12 minutes. Like
Hmm.
you have to stay within that frame,
Yeah.
maybe, but like it's not as stressed. Like if you go over a few minutes
Hmm.
because you were working on whatever, it doesn't matter as much. But that doesn't mean that everything you see on TV is contrived either. You know what I mean? If the guy's having a long match, you know what I mean? Like if you have two guys who are working a long pay-per-view match, chances are, especially again, if somebody who's a great worker is going to leave some area for again freelancer. We don't have to plan every single thing I do in the heat. Like it was just like I'm gonna work on your back, or I'm gonna
Yeah.
focus on this body part, and I might do this or I might do that. You know what I mean? Just put like a lot of times I'll tell guys just keep this on file.
Yeah.
Like we might do this or that or that. Like does if we don't, that's fine. But like you like maybe you're in a good position for it, so accommodate this. You know what I mean? I like you like to like maybe wrap a guy's leg around the post or something.
Right.
If you have a
Keep it in.
situation where I'm kicking you down in the corner and you're selling down, selling down, selling down,
Mhm.
maybe kind of stay in that region because that means I can slide out there and maybe
Yeah.
follow up with that, rather than just leaving that area right away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
Somebody, and somebody who's good, who remember that would consider that in the moment and be like, oh, I'm already down here in this position. He said he likes this maneuver or
Mhm.
this offensive move. So I'm just going to kind of, and that way you also don't look, because you never want to look like you're accommodating. I
Yeah.
hate that more than anything. Like somebody looks like, oh, like, they're kind of running over to an area because,
Because they know it's coming. Yeah.
yeah, you make
Yeah.
it look, it
Yeah.
has to look organic.
Yeah.
You're already there in that area, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
Now, and obviously, I have to know to go capitalize. He's right over there, so let me slide out, grab his leg, wrap
Yeah.
it around the post, boom.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking of there to tie in with our first topic today was the Raw to Netflix. I did watch, they have got some of the old Monday Night Raws online now. They've got some from 93, 94, 95, 96, all the way up to the present. Actually, I think they're missing some years, but
How many?
yeah, they're missing some years. They're
But
actually
wait,
now.
how many like of in like one like how many in the year from the year 96?
So from 96, they may have about 6 or 7 episodes. They've got the highlight ones mainly. I've been going back through. They've got the first episode of the Manhattan Center. One of those saw a match with Shawn Michaels. I think it was Shawn Michaels against Max Moon, not Conan
Uh,
as Max Moon,
yeah, that's
the
the
other
first
guy.
Raw. That's
That
the
was the
first Raw,
first
right?
Raw. But that match is a perfect blend of what you were talking about earlier. He's got the speed, he's got the gymnastics, so to speak, the high spots, but he's also telling the story at the same time. The two of them, if anybody has a chance to watch that match, go back and watch the very first Monday Night Raw, Shawn Michaels against Max Moon. That is a perfect example of a blended match that just came out perfectly. Not too many high spots, not too many slow moments, but just right. Great, great match. And of course, Shawn Michaels is one of Chris's favorites. So
Well, yeah, and his selling was just, I remember even as a kid, because I liked him ever since he had split with Marty right away. Like,
Yeah.
I was into him and Sherry together, the song, the image. I was just like,
Yeah.
why do I like this bad guy as a kid? You know what I mean? It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I'd never liked a heel before, but I do know that watching him though, like, and it's not even just Sean. I around that time, like my biggest influences were the heels that did that kind of they sold really well, like,
Yeah.
and like again, as a heel, you sell a little more animated. Like some of Sean's selling had a lot of theatrics. But one of the things I loved about those athletic heels was the way, a heel that could cover the ring. You know what I mean? That would keep the action
Hmm.
moving.
Yeah.
And Shawn Michaels was the guy who did that. He had the real animated cells, which were amazing.
Yeah.
But he also he would cover a lot of the ring, and Ric Flair would do the same
Yeah.
thing.
Flair. Yeah.
Mr. Perfect would
Yeah.
do that. He had the athletic animated selling, and you just, to me, that was my favorite kind of archetype of worker, was the heel that sold well, that covered the ring and could keep the action flowing, and it
Yeah.
was typically athletic.
Yeah. And you mentioned Flair and Perfect again. WWE Raw on Netflix. Go back, watch
And
Mr.
and
Perfect.
oh, but
Yeah.
and don't let's not leave out Bret. Like, and
Oh yeah,
so
Brett.
the
Yeah.
contrast of that was you had Bret Hart, who was also a good seller, but as a babyface, obviously, but his selling was more grounded. It wasn't as animated. You know what I mean? It was a
Hmm.
little more kind of realistic,
Yeah.
but it was completely different from HBK's. So, like,
Very much
just
so.
to point that out, there is different styles to that. Obviously, as a baby face, you typically aren't as animated.
That's true. Very, very true. And Chris, I forgot actually, we forgot to tell our audience at the top of the hour to make sure to lock in that subscribe button. We totally forgot, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, hit that like button, lock in, and subscribe right now. Right
Yep.
now.
Right
We're not
now.
going to say a word until you do it.
Yep. Right now. Just okay. I think we got some right there, Chris. Yep.
Done.
We got.
They did it.
They
All
did it.
right, we can continue.
They did it. Hit the like, share with your friends and family. Chris, I want to move on to some other topics now because there's a lot of chaos going on in the world right now. Of course, our hearts and prayers go out to the families involved with all of these things, tragedies that have taken place over the new year. We won't go into details about those. But other things that are equally as disturbing is what is taking place in the entertainment industry. Now, we've known for years that the entertainment playground is not PG and it is not for the faint of heart and it is not everything it's being cracked up to be. And now the veil is being removed, particularly over P. Diddy or Puff Daddy or Sean Combs, whatever you want to call him.
No
Uh,
Diddy.
P. Diddy. All right.
No Diddy.
No Diddy. The Riddler, the Diddler. Chris, this is in the headlines. This is absolutely crazy. Tunnels beneath his home, drugging people, sex trafficking, blackmail, gun possession, debauchery, you name it. Did you think anything like this was going to ever happen to someone like P. Diddy?
I guess I don't know. I didn't really think about it too much, but like I will say, like, I was surprised. I mean, it is kind of surprising to find out that P. Diddy is like one of the worst people that's ever lived. And
Mhm.
like, you know, even if all of this isn't true, like, just seeing that video with Cassie where he's beating her up, I mean, you know, there's no excuse for that. Like,
Mhm.
that's just,
Yeah.
to kick a person while they're down, that,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, because, like, to me, one of the craziest parts about the whole Diddy thing isn't even necessarily the fact that he's accused of all that. It's more thinking about what he's going through, the contrast. You've got a guy who's lived the most luxurious lifestyle there is practically,
Yeah.
and to go from that to that hellhole jail, as they call it,
Mhm.
like with no transition. And like, and on top of it, just because I've been through a little bit of this in my past and hearing about it through the headlines, on top of that, he was a drug addict. So
Mhm.
he's a drug addict that's going into this situation and then having to go through, withdrawals and what you'd have to go through. And that, so
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it was just been so kind of so fascinating to think of just, I don't know, just how troubling and trying it was. I don't even think we can imagine what this dude has gone through over the
Mm.
last few months, just because, and not that to say that anybody should feel bad for him. And that's kind of why I was referencing the Cassie thing before. It's like anytime I kind of wanted to have some sympathy for him, you see that video and then you just know that there was a lot more of that.
Hmm.
And I just know through interacting with some of the wrestlers, because he was backstage at a Raw one time.
Oh, he was?
And
Okay.
yeah, and some of them were describing his behavior and talking about how, it doesn't surprise them all this just seeing his behavior even at Raw. Because I think he had hired some guy at Raw, and this is kind of crazy because I'm a sneakerhead, right?
Okay.
I'm a sneakerhead, so nobody loves sneakers as much as me. But apparently, P Diddy showed up to Raw, and he had some guy that he paid because he got some new very rare Air Jordan that, like, is very elusive to most people. I'm not
Okay.
sure which one. I should know actually, but and he had them carrying it around with him on like a pillow or something. Apparently, like
Right.
just carrying the sneakers around, just
Yeah. Yeah. That's
everywhere he
strange.
went, just and it's just such an odd story. Like.
Yeah. To carry
I
that on Raw.
Well, I mean, just like I guess he had the guy carrying it around with him all day everywhere he went. Apparently,
That's
I don't
pretty
know,
strange.
but anyways, being that I'm a sneakerhead, just
Yeah.
thinking I can't relate to that even a little bit. I don't know. This is, it probably goes back to the whole almost Vince McMahon, that power trip type dynamic.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. This guy, it's just crazy the contrast and lifestyles of what he went from to where he is now, and I don't know. I can't imagine where this is going to lead. I can't imagine that this leads to anywhere but unfortunately eventually him probably committing suicide or something. I just can't imagine him being like, the only way that he'll be okay with this is if somehow he comes to, oh, I don't think you should use that term on YouTube. We might get
No.
demonetized.
I have to try and block that one out, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you
Yeah.
might have to block that. So
Yeah.
hey, new to the game here, but at least
Yeah.
I caught it.
Yeah.
But I just think that the only way that he would come out of this okay is if, he just like kind of looks at this like, okay, they got me, but I had one heck of a run here. So, and then he accepts that like, okay, I'm going to be behind bars the rest of my life, but I did it big for however, I did it as big as you could do it for however many years, but I don't see him as
I,
a guy like that. I just don't think he's ever going to accept
I,
that the rest of
I,
his life being behind bars.
I think one of the most traumatic things is here for anybody who's a human being is just the concept of if you accumulate a series of bad things that you do to others in your life, and one day you're locked up in a dark room, or it could be a bright room, whatever, but you're locked up nonetheless. The only thing that's going to keep you company there is your thoughts and your memories. And that's the problem right there. So, and I think it's a good time as any, Chris, to bestow some wisdom. Think before you act in life. Think about the repercussions. Think about how you're treating somebody else. Think about what you're doing and how that affects somebody else. And
But but
understand. Yeah.
but I do think this too. Sorry, I don't mean to break your point. Hopefully you can keep going. But I just think, you know, the public goes a little wild with it. I think in terms of the P. Diddy parties, I think
Mhm.
it's kind of crazy how everybody wants to jump to if you've been to a Diddy party, you are somehow associated with his bad behavior, or any celebrity who's been there. I know a lot of people wanted to get on LeBron
Oh yeah.
because I mean LeBron infamously said there ain't no Diddy like a Diddy party or
Yeah.
something like
Something
that.
like that. Yeah.
And it is a terrible statement to say, and he'll never live that down. But I don't think that automatically points to, oh, LeBron is involved in scandalous behavior or anything. Like I don't want to live in a society where you pre-convict people just because they were like associated to that degree with somebody. And I just
No.
think it's unfair. And almost like that kind of plays into exactly, what we've gone through with woke culture, where you
Yeah.
automatically are looking for a reason to cancel somebody, and especially somebody of LeBron, who all we have, you might not like LeBron for whatever reason. He's
Mhm.
a polarizing athlete, but you can't argue the fact that the guy doesn't have many scandals, or
Right,
any
right, right.
scandals.
Yeah.
There's no record of him like cheating on his wife, illegitimate kids. I mean, so you have to give him his due there, and like, that's why I even bring him up why you wouldn't want to pre-convict. But it goes for just any celebrities. You know what I mean? I just think the
Yeah.
public is so quick to want to convict. Oh, anybody who went to a Diddy party is
Yeah.
guilty somehow. Like, I'm sure there were some. I mean, I wonder what happened with Justin Bieber.
Well, that's the big
Yeah,
question.
I think he's a victim.
Yeah,
Quite
yeah,
frankly,
he certainly looks like a victim. I was just saying last night to a family member
he
how,
probably doesn't want, and he probably doesn't want it out because it's like it's shameful. Like he doesn't want people to know that, like, oh, maybe Diddy lowered him into some situations that are not so flattering, at least to him, or he doesn't
Mhm,
want the public to know. So
mhm,
and I would speculate that it might be something that's, I'm almost sure it's something like that. Just
yeah.
looking at when you look at the tapes of them, the video of them, and you know,
He's
I don't
afraid of
know.
him. There's one particular video where he's afraid of Diddy. You can tell.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, but and I've seen that clip, and if you extend the clip, I mean, it doesn't look as bad because there is some dialogue after that where
yeah,
it kind of softens it. But no, I know what you're talking about, and
yeah,
I'm sure. I mean, it was, I don't know. There's just
yeah.
something not right there for sure. I
Something
mean,
not.
at the very least, he was definitely exposed to some things that he shouldn't have been at that age.
Yeah. Likewise, Usher. I can say the same thing there. He was very, very young when he got into the kid. But the question I have as well, though, is where were the parents in all of this? I know if I had a 12, 13-year-old kid, there is no way on earth that I would have given them a guardianship of them to a rapper. Not on earth would I have done that. So you've got to also question that, Chris. Where were the parents of Justin Bieber? Where were Usher's parents?
I think, I would look at what was happening in the family at the time. Like, were they well off? Or because, I think it's very easy for even your parents to get clouded by the idea of not even just for their, not to say it's just for them or like, oh, now this kid can now take care of us, but more about like, if it was Justin Bieber's dream, I
Right.
mean, like he's always wanted to do this, and now he has this affiliation with somebody this important. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you'd almost, and like the interactions start out great. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. I could see a parents getting maybe lowered into it. Not maybe right away,
Mhm.
but with that kind of, again, with that context, if
Yeah.
it was his dream, and like I don't know, I could see I could at least see his parents wanting to think like, oh, this Diddy guy seems okay, and he's such a big name and such a mogul that there's no way he could be,
Yeah.
up to anything, dastardly.
Yeah. Well, we know that dastardly exists. And yeah, I will say caution to anybody, though, if they are going to pursue a career in Hollywood in
It
anything.
reminds me of the Michael Jackson
Yeah.
parents, the one, like
Yeah.
why did
Michael
they? I
Jackson's
mean,
dad.
to me, that was more questionable, I think, like staying at his house for the weekend. And I don't know. I don't
Yep.
know.
They're
I don't want to go there because a lot of people think Michael might be innocent too, and he might. So,
There's a lot. We always got to remember with the media, Chris. I've worked in film and television. There are always smoke and mirrors. Okay, it's an illusion. What you're seeing is not real, and what takes place behind the scenes is not at all what you imagine or fantasize it to be. It is cutthroat. It is dog eat dog. It is very well. Chris, you've had a taste of that. It's the same in pro wrestling. It's the
well, but
same. It's similar.
for the longest time, I did want to have faith because I'm like, where are we going to get our news from? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
but I will say that like going through this election that we've gone through and everything, at the very
Yep.
least, I have realized that not everybody was, fake news isn't necessarily just some term that Trump came up with. There is a real aspect to fake news. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not
Yeah.
necessarily just news that comes out of thin air, but it's simple thing. It's the media. Like again, an example that I didn't realize that was kind of upsetting to me was not to go political on this show, but just to point out something on this topic was, Trump, the decent people thing on both sides when in regards to Charlottesville,
Mm.
that was something that was pumped for a long time that like oh he said there's decent people on the bad side, but again if you extend that clip
Yeah.
he basically says no, the anybody from the KKK or anything like that, he was condemning that.
Yeah.
So I mean that's an example of fake news, just to point out that example of it's withholding information that would serve the context of what's being spoken of.
Yeah, and that's a very good way to describe it, Chris. And I think a lot of people are not informed of that.
It's yeah, it's letting the media just wash over you without looking into it a little bit. Like,
Right.
you have to look like you can trust, like you can watch the news, but you also have to look into if something sparks your interest or is questionable, you have to look in. You can't just take it for the headline.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know what I mean?
exactly.
You have to look into it.
Exactly. If it's like if someone tells you, "Oh, this move,"
Research it,
yeah,
research it. Get a
yeah,
few, like, if something sparks your interest, don't just take one headline for it. Research it, go YouTube, Google, and like see if there is a consensus or something that's been withheld, like in that situation. I mean, that's the only way we're going to be able to move forward as a society, because again, where are we going to get our news from? Like we have, you can't just go by them, but you also don't want to just go by online or Twitter, right?
right, right.
Or your Facebook feed.
Yeah.
So, you have to watch whichever one of these you want to watch, but then, look into them.
Yeah, look into it.
It's funny that you and me on. I like to go to the BBC
Oh yeah,
because they,
yeah,
they have no dog in the fight, really.
that's
At
true.
least I like to think.
Well, yeah, that's true. I often, for many years, I would watch the BBC, and not just because I was born and raised in the United Kingdom, just because I wanted to see it from a neutral perspective. Like you said, no
Well, yeah, because
skin in
we
the game.
know we already know out here for sure. Now it's so predictable now.
Mhm.
Fox is the right, MSNBC and CNN are definitively the left. When
Yeah,
CNN was supposed to be more centrist, but they rallied so much against Trump that now they're basically just, so I mean, it's just that's why the BBC is and even Sky Australia is like basically Fox.
yeah.
I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever watched Sky
Oh yes, I
Australia, but
have. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's why again, I mean, I guess maybe I should check out Al Jazeera. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you could, or maybe go to an Australian news network or something. I mean, well, yeah, we got Sky News.
Wasn't there Sky News in Europe?
There is Sky News in Europe. That's why I
Yeah,
got
Sky News
confused. Yeah,
is. I
there's Sky
remember, dude.
News.
I remember a lot of trips to Europe and not having anything. This is before we all had tablets and stuff.
Yeah.
And you'd have to watch the TV, and man, I'd have to watch Sky News for like 12 hours a day.
No, Sky News is, well, that's Rupert Murdoch's company. So Rupert Murdoch is in charge of Sky, and that is definitely the Fox of
Wait, but Sky News in Europe is the same as Sky Australia?
it's the same company. Sky is the
Oh
same company.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't
It's
know that.
this
They seem different to me.
No, it's the same company. Sky is just their Australian news, and then
Wow,
Sky
he's
News.
got a stronghold, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, Rupert Murdoch.
Wow.
Yeah, billionaire,
Wow.
man,
No wonder,
billionaire.
man. He's just dominated the news market.
Well, I tell you what, though, Chris, what could happen this year, we don't know, is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is certainly moving up in the world, and he already owns X, and he's already said that he'd like to buy MSNBC.
Hey,
So,
you know how we were talking about aliens last week?
yeah,
Man, if there was one alien living amongst us of somebody we know, like Elon Musk, like
yeah,
you know what I mean? I was just thinking about that today. I'm like, if there was a hybrid
yeah,
humanoid
yeah,
alien that living amongst us, it would be like Elon Musk. Like I could, like
yeah.
he's just. I mean, I'm not dogging on the guy. He's done some great, but I mean, he does look. I don't know, something about him just. He
Well,
just
think,
even the way he processes information, he
yeah,
just.
he does.
He's kind of reptilian in nature.
My my wife actually said that. She says sometimes he sounds like a robot. I said, well, I don't know. I mean, like he's processing something. He's probably already got the Neuralink in his head.
It
So
reminds me, it reminds me if I was looking into the alien races and how you have the grays and then you have the that one that's reptilian,
yeah,
right?
the reptilians. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
like
That is
maybe
right.
they look a little more human-y and Elon is
Shapeshifter, a shapeshifter.
or
Who
maybe
knows?
Elon's just friends with the aliens or he's in cahoots.
Well, he's
Somebody's in cahoots with the aliens.
someone's in cahoots, and I tell you what, Elon Musk would be a prime suspect considering he's invented all this stuff, he's garnered all this wealth, and now power at the same time.
Yeah, but
I,
I feel like every time every time it's been proposed to Elon,
yeah,
I feel like his ego I feel like his ego doesn't want to take that there could be aliens that have this technology. I'm not
yeah,
even kidding you.
yeah,
When I watched there's a clip of him on Rogan where Rogan's reading up to him, and
yeah.
when I'm looking at his face, all it looks like to me is like he doesn't want to believe that there's technology that can do all that. You
That's
know what I
better
mean?
than him.
Because of what it does. But
It's
although maybe I'm way off base, maybe he's thinking of the possibilities.
Well, he's definitely got his mind in UFOs and sci-fi. Just, I mean, look at the cars he designs. Look at the Sky. Was it Sky? No, Skynet. There's another system he wants to put out there. Starlink. Starlink is what it's called. Yeah, definitely a guy who's watched a lot of sci-fi films. He's got a lot of money. He's trying to put that into practice. Chris, I think we've come to the top of the hour here. So, like I said, everybody, we want to give you quality, not quantity. We don't want to bore you for 3 or 4 hours here. Wanted to
Yes.
tell you what we think, share a little bit of our time with yours, and we thank you for that. Again, Happy New Year from the Masterpiece and myself, a fellow master. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we encourage you again to make sure that you lock in that subscribe button, hit the
Lock it
like,
in.
lock it in, and share with your friends and family. And also, again, Chris and I are in need of some protein powder, so hit those super stickers in the comments. All right.
Love it.
Chris, any closing comments for this week?
Man, just happy 2025, and I'm gonna be celebrating a birthday soon. So I think next week might be the birthday edition.
Oh, okay. It's the birthday edition next week, ladies and gentlemen. So get prepared for
Yeah,
that.
I'm turning 32.
There you go, 32. Well, Chris, you don't look Chris, you don't look a day over 29.
I started wrestling when I was 10.
Well, it may as well. It was close to that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening, day, wherever you are, and we'll see you next week right here on Masterlocked.